Senator Ferguson, exact same question. With the challenges facing Metro, the need for relief of congestion, the American Legion Bridge needing to be redone. What is in Maryland legislature doing to solve some of these issues, both short term as well as long term? And then how can Maryland cooperate and collaborate with Virginia to add value to the connectivity, transportation infrastructure, and reduce the congestion?
Oh, thank you. And I think Senator Lucas said it well, that WMATA and Metro are certainly probably our regions, our shared regions, kind of most important priority. It's critical that we have the joint resources, and I think we've demonstrated that. I think each of us put in about $167 million recently in enhanced funding. I know that there is an ongoing shortfall, operating shortfall, and something that we're having very serious conversations about. At the end of the day, WMATA and Metro are crucial. They're critical links for the region. Business does know boundaries, but at the end of the day, the seamless transition between our two states is essential. It's what we truly are, one of the most powerful regions on the globe, and the shared strength of Virginia and Maryland is something that is attributable to it. You look from Baltimore to Richmond, that corridor is one of the most populous and highly educated and most effective regions on the entire planet. And so the effective transportation between these two areas is critical. I will say a lot of us focus on sort of the DC area, Prince George's, Montgomery, and Northern Virginia. I just recently had the opportunity to go visit Wallops Island, which, while in Virginia, has a number of Maryland residents that work there, and this NASA spaceport that just so happens to be in our kind of eastern shores. As we look towards the changing world and the changing economy, who would have thought, it goes from seaports to airports to now spaceports. But we actually have one of the best spaceports in the entire country located on the eastern shore. And that transportation infrastructure on our eastern shore and connecting with Virginia is essential, that we can be competitive as commercial space flight and all of the new economy continues. I'll say the biggest challenge that we're going to have here in Maryland, and I suspect it's likely the case in every state, is that, as we move forward with climate change issues and we do the right thing by trying to electrify and have more electric vehicles, there's no doubt that's good for the environment. But for Maryland, about 24% of our transportation funding comes from the gas tax. And so as we electrify and more people have electric vehicles, that gas tax, which we rely on to fund our transportation infrastructure, is a diminishing revenue source. And so this is a very real conversation that we're starting to have about how do we make sure that we can invest in infrastructure in the future? So when you look at things like the American Legion Bridge and 495 expansion and ongoing expansions of WMATA and stuff in the Baltimore region with the Red Line and other mass transit investments, at the moment, we have enough money to do system preservation. We don't have the funds, especially with diminishing revenues, to do enhancements. And so we launched a commission this year. We call it the Transportation Revenues and Infrastructure Needs, the TRAIN Commission. It's with the Department of Transportation here in Maryland to really think about how are we going to prioritize what we invest in, and how do we make sure we have sufficient resources to do what we know is essential for our economy. It's a tough conversation that we're going to have over the next 2 years, but it's just, we have to have efficient ways of moving people, goods, and services. And, I believe we'll come forward with answers. But it's a really, really critical conversation for us right now.
Yes, it is. And we also have so many other issues that we're going to be working on together, including clean air and water, workforce development, public safety, and where we need to work as a region collaboratively across state lines to improve the lives of our constituents. And I just feel very, very good about our collaboration going forward.
Absolutely. We appreciate that. And that's exactly what the Board of Trade wants to continue, is that collaboration and that spirit of working together. So I'm going to switch topics on you very quickly and go to the economy. Senator Ferguson, I'm going to go this question with you first. As the federal COVID relief funding is drying up and the future of the economy remains uncertain, Governor Moore has called for budgetary discipline. Can you share with our members exactly where do we stand right now, and what are some of the big challenges ahead, and how do you propose that we address some of those issues?
Yeah, look, I would just say we should always be disciplined when it comes to our budget. And so, our general sense is that for the last few years, we've had a unique, extraordinary situation, once in 100-year event, enormous federal resources. We really have tried to be thoughtful in how we've deployed those. We've tried to not put it towards ongoing costs, put those one-time dollars into pay-go, into things that were one-time expenditures that wouldn't face a fiscal cliff when the money dried up. And so I feel very good about our standing when it comes to as federal resources are less expansive than they had been. We had a pretty hot economy in fiscal year 2022. We were at $1 billion over expected in our income tax, about $250 million above on our sales tax, about $100 million above our estimates for corporate income tax. And so in 2022, we sort of had historic gains. And so this last year, we tried to be really thoughtful. That's not going to continue. There was sort of unique circumstances. And we try to put a lot of that into cash reserves, put it into our rainy day fund, kind of prepare for when things are not quite as sunny day as they have been. We sit in a very, very good spot, but there are some huge risks on the horizon. And so when you think about the federal shutdown, that's potential. I don't know. I haven't seen any breaking news alerts. I don't know if we have a U.S. Speaker of the House yet, which is certainly a major risk factor for Maryland and Virginia with all of the federal resources. I think just something like 1 out of every 9 workers in Maryland is receiving their personal income comes from something directly attributable to the federal government. And so if there's no Speaker of the House and we continue to have a stalemate in the federal government, that will have huge impacts. I am hopeful and prayerful that reason will prevail at some point and we will have a functional government. I think and believe that will be the case at some point, but it will have real big impacts if by November, I think it's 17th, that will have, we have to be very thoughtful about that. So while we are steady, we are at a solid footing. We will continue to be disciplined, but there are big risks out there with the impact of what happens at the federal level, and then of course the international impact of what's happening in Israel and Ukraine, and all of these are things we just have to keep our eye on because we're so reliant to the federal government and can have shifts in multiple directions.